So I've always slammed Cyril Ramaphosa, but now we need him. We need him and his allies to stay firm and focus what is right for the country and not, which they've always done, what is right for the ANC. And what is right for the country is to form a partnership, an alliance, a coalition, an agreement with the DA and a number of the multi-party coalition parties and make...
Now Rob Hersov is back commenting on South Africa's politics, and this time he's actually really praying and hoping that Ramaphosa actually acts right. And in his words, he actually says that we need Ramaphosa right now. Let's listen to what he has to say about the potential of coalitions and foreign direct investment in South Africa, and I'll be back for some really interesting analysis.
Well, I guess it also relates to the South African companies who've got 1.5 trillion rand in cash on their balance sheets, which is not being reinvested. So what would spark that? What would change that approach and make South Africa investable again, as against the practical consequence right now of being uninvestable?
So what matters most to South Africans? It's employment, safety and security, and all the basics, okay, which the ANC has been unable to deliver. In some form of partnership with the Government of National Unity, the GNU of the DA, IFP, and others, as long as MK is not trying to destabilize and create civil unrest, which I think they will do, it is the Russian playbook. As long as we can create that stability, opportunities arise, because there will have to be privatization from a government level of state-owned enterprises, or privatization by default, which has in some ways happened in the electricity sector, where the big mining companies didn't really wait for permission to do over 100 megawatts of power. They went and just did it themselves in advance of the ruling coming through. So I think we have to do that. We have to not ask permission and maybe beg forgiveness down the line, just get on with doing what we have to do to survive. So that's the only way forward, is for the new government to deregulate, focus more on private enterprise, encourage investment, and privatize state-owned enterprises, or what's left of them. The Western Cape must get control of its rail services, of its rail network, because it is fixable. Alan Winde and Jordan Hill-Lewis, two fantastic people, fantastic politicians, have a plan in place to revitalize the rail systems in the Western Cape. And if we can do it in the Western Cape, it can be done in other parts of South Africa, but only by private enterprise and forward-thinking governance.
Reading through the lines, it's an exciting time, but a very dangerous time. And if it were to break the right way, this could be the best country in the world still, as Paul O'Sullivan says. But if it breaks the wrong way, maybe not so much the best country in the world. Sum it up for us, Rob, on what you are looking for over the next 14 days and what will be influencing your longer-term decisions thereafter.
So I've always slammed Cyril Ramaphosa, but now we need him. We need him and his allies to stay firm and focus what is right for the country and not, which they've always done, what is right for the ANC. And what is right for the country is to form a partnership, an alliance, a coalition, an agreement with the DA and a number of the multi-party coalition parties, and make the 5 years deliver results, get runs on the board in the next 5 years, so that in 2029, whoever emerges from the Phoenix can take that forward. We cannot turn into Argentina, where you have 50 years of socialism and complete destruction of the economy, which is where we're headed. So I am worried, nervous, an element of me is cautiously optimistic. My mood changes throughout the day, depending on what people tell me. It's harrowing, but I'd rather live here than New Zealand, where everything's very predictable.
Yeah, what do you guys think? I think it's really interesting that, Rob Hersov actually has come back to the scene, really commenting, really has a voice, especially in the entrepreneurial community in South Africa. But he doesn't really have a positive, outlook to things, especially in the light of the kinds of coalitions that we might see in South Africa at the moment. And here he's actually arguing that, a DA-ANC coalition would be what probably South Africa needs, and that right now South Africans need Ramaphosa to make really wise decisions. But anyway, for this analysis, I thought that I found a really interesting report on Tech Central, and the report actually is titled "The Rand Climbs as Investors Bet on ANC-DA Coalition." So an ANC-DA coalition is already sending a positive ripple effect to the, what in Nigeria is called Security Exchange Commission, to the stock market anyway, and especially affecting the Rand. Now the Rand is on a high because a lot of investors see a prospect for the ANC-DA coalition. So the research actually says that assets are rebounding, fueled by investor hopes that the country will soon get a more market-friendly government. Okay? So it argues that South Africa's assets are rebounding, and fueled by investors' hope that the country would emerge from the next 13 days of coalition talks with a market-friendly government. The Rand surged as much as 1.6% this Monday, its biggest one-day gain since 14th of December, after the ANC failed to secure a majority for the first time in 30 years. South Africa's dollar bonds were among the top performers in a Bloomberg index of emerging and frontier sovereign Eurobonds, while the FTSE and JSE All-Share Index ended the day as a second best performing equity gauge in dollar terms among the 92 indexes monitored by Bloomberg. Okay, so it says that a new government must be sworn in by the 17th of June, and the anticipated coalition might look quite different to what was previously forecast. So, in other words, it says that the previous forecast was kind of like an ANC, EFF, MK, which kind of like investors have been really scared about that. And even Rob Hersov has actually argued that he wouldn't invest, in many parts of South Africa in such a situation, but rather he will continue investing, but not in South Africa, but in other parts outside Africa, okay? Now, the report says that before the election, many on Wall Street had priced in the ANC securing about 45% of the vote, allowing the party to form a coalition with a smaller party. However, the ANC secured 40.2% of the vote only, opening up several scenarios that investors had previously considered unlikely, including a potential alliance with the left-leaning Economic Freedom Fighters or the newly formed MK party, which includes former President Jacob Zuma. Now, it says that our perception is that the market views with a potential coalition with the largest opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, as overall benign, although fragile. You see, and this was a statement by a portfolio manager in an investment management company. It says that South Africa's assets were highly volatile in the first hours of trading on Monday, but ended on Monday on a stable footing. And it says that a formal alliance with the DA would be most supportive and perhaps give rise to a rally in asset prices. However, they believe that there will be an enduring rise in the South Africa's risk premium given the increase in implementation risks. So in terms of investor confidence right now, as coalition talks are going on, it says that despite the setback at the polls, the ANC remains the country's largest party. And Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana on Monday said that the ANC would not make reckless decisions in selecting a coalition partner, aiming to maintain investor confidence and economic policy continuity, which South Africa really needs at the moment. It speaks about how current coalition talks involve potential alliances with the EFF, the MK, and the DA. And the ANC has ruled out a demand by the MK that President Cyril Ramaphosa should step down. But it's considering a minority government or confidence and supply agreement to maintain stability. And right now it's more talked about a government of national unity, as it were. The report also argues that, in terms of investor confidence, that Citigroup expects that the ANC would rule as a minority government, creating parliamentary uncertainty and instability. But a pact with the DA would be welcomed by financial markets, as it would accelerate economic reforms and privatization initiatives as is seen more likely as a scenario. So it argues that, you know, what John Steenhuisen has argued as a doomsday coalition between the EFF, MK, and the ANC would kind of like increase the high risk premium which investors actually gauge prior to making an investment in a country, and that's probably what South Africa doesn't need at the moment. So it's really difficult how to interpret most of these issues. Foreign direct investment, I know and I believe, I'm certain about, is really important for the growth of any country at the moment, especially those in the global south, you see. And to have sort of like a coalition that would really dampen investor confidence, I don't know if might be a wise way to go for a country like South Africa at the moment, that is really reeking of high unemployment levels and, you know, poverty in many regards. And so it would be really smart that the ANC would be careful in making decisions. And as Rob Hersov speaks about, that South Africa really needs Ramaphosa now, even though he has previously said votsec to the ANC, votsec to President Ramaphosa. It seems that South Africa needs President Ramaphosa now to make really wise decisions to sustain investor confidence in South Africa, help continuous maintain the status, to maintain the, I can call it a status quo in a way, in terms of investment confidence in South Africa, and making South Africa a really much more attractive place to attract investors. Because if that is taken away from the current trajectory which South Africa is at the moment, it might spell more doom and really a downward slide for South Africa. So this is the argument from the investor perspective, but the left-wing parties anyway do not see it from this perspective. There's a much more hope in Russia and China in filling up any gap that is actually made by any capital flight at the moment, and that there will be much more investment from Russia and China, and that will shift South Africa completely, I believe, or majorly to the economics of the left. But it's been a lot of information. What do you guys think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments.